In an unbiased way, what religion do you think has the highest chance of being true? I don't know, but I think it would be fucking hilarious if it was some religion from 4,000 years ago that everyone forgot about. I'd love Shintoism to be true. That all things that surround us, alive or not, have a spirit and we should be respectful of the nature. You'll know when the sign appears. Gozer the traveler. He will come in one of the pre-chosen forms. During the rectification of the Vuldrini, the traveler came as a large and moving toward then. During the third reconciliation of the last of the Maketric supplicants, they chose a new form for him that of a giant slore. Many Shuvs and Zils knew what it was to be roasted in the depths of the slore that day, I can tell you. Buddhism. It's more a philosophy than it is a religion. A philosophy that bases itself on the idea that wanting things is what causes pain, and the path to happiness lies on not constantly wanting things. In our consumerist society, this is a very valuable lesson. Deism. Something created reality, but does not intervene in creation. I don't personally believe this, but if it turns out there is some intelligent creator, this is my bet. Buddhism. I can't get into any religion even though I've researched a lot of them, but that one makes the most logical sense to me. As an atheist, I'd say maybe Taoism. I doubt the ritualistic aspects hold any water, but a lot of the broad philosophical points found in the Tao Te Ching seem to have some merit. Egyptian gods. That shit was written down over 5,000 years ago and we can still read it. If I were a god, that's how I'd document shit. Anything recorded on paper is worthless. All of them and none of them. Personally, I believe that every religion is an attempt to explain the unexplainable things in the universe. Differences in ideology stem from the period and time for which the religion started, cultural influences, which if any intoxicants were being used, biases of the people in power, etc., but every single one I am aware of is an attempt to make sense of the world. They are all correct in identifying that there are unexplainable phenomena but are all wrong in assuming their own view is the correct one. Pastafarianita, the simplest with the least amount of to get wrong. There is a large invisible all-knowing all-seeing entity made of noodles and meatballs that is responsible for everything. And that's it. One thing to dispute or disprove. Question can't be answered without bias. If respondent believes some religion is more likely to be valid, respondent will be an adherent of that path. Sikhism. It has no prophets. Everything it says about God is the result of philosopher gurus sitting down and contemplating the question of what God would want if he were real. Of course they had biases, but it's still a better approach than all the other ones. I guess it's difficult only because truth is a hard definition in relation to religion. My best guess? Sikhs. They're on average devout, charitable, and kind. If I was going to be a religious person, it'd be Sikh. At the same time, I'm most attracted to Buddhism simply because the concept of non-permanence is something that I think applies to everything in the material universe, and yet, the idea of the unbegotten begotter that is the center of Abrahamic religions like Islam or Christianity also have their own appeal. I think, at the end of the day, if you're religious it will largely be because your religion aligns with your worldview and it's hard to objectively judge that. Whatever the whales believe. A 9 kilograms brain floating around in a giant sensory deprivation tank with millions of years of evolutionary development probably has some valuable philosophical insight. Non-duality has the highest chance of being true. Buddhism is another, but still a lot of BS to sift through, but ultimately they both attempt to explain suffering and why the self exists in a way that is very much plausible. Buddhism just has a lot of BS in it, whereas non-duality just gets straight to the problem. Don't know if they're really true, but they both still blow all other religions out of the water in terms of how plausible they are. I'm no spiritual guru, but plants, fungus and stars are really fucking cool, so it'd probably have something to do with those things. Logically speaking? I think it's Islam. The theology is simple yet all-encompassing and logical. It goes beyond the spiritual and sets a paradigm for complete human conduct. Many of the societal problems we now face and always faced were already resolved by Islam. We just don't fancy the solutions all that much in today's liberalized world, thus all the hate and fear of it. It is quite a shame really. It's the fastest growing religion in the world, yet the least understood and the most hated. Despite them absolutely hating my guts as an atheist, I fully deny the existence of God. I would have to say Islam. The Quran is way out of precise to be at least kinda accurate. Beliefs with a strong connection to nature, working with animals and herbs. It feels the most natural to me because we are of the earth. Live a good life. If there are gods and they are just, then they will not care how devout you have been, but will welcome you based on the virtues you have lived by. If there are gods, but unjust, then you should not want to worship them. If there are no gods, then you will be gone, but will have lived a noble life that will live on in the memories of your loved ones. Marcus Aurelius. This doesn't answer your question, but the question is also a fallacy. Buddhism. Gautam Buddha was actually a son of a Hindu king. There are stories about him in Hindu scriptures that he went to find the actual meaning to life when he saw the sufferings in the world. His place of birth is mentioned and is present in Bihar, India. His actual name was Siddharth. Edit born in Lumbini, Nepal. Not Gaya, Bihar. One that is arguably provably true is sun worship. The sun is the origin of almost all life on Earth. We would all die without it. You must respect it or it will easily kill you, and it can and should be thanked for every plant ever grown. The only catch is some flavors of the religion believe you get free shit if you offer stuff to the sun, so I guess YMMV depending on which brand of sun worship you buy into. This is a profound question. An excellent one. I was raised vaguely Christian. The nation I live in is specifically Judeo-Christian based. Within this framework, we have, accept, and give exposure to every religion invented. In a multitude of variations. I personally believe that any religion that has been successful for more than 1,000 years to be worthy of being called true. I don't agree with the tenets, in whole, of any one of them. I do, however, respect that these religions provide a successful and proven template for a prosperous and stable society. Which is best? Which is most true? That is up to you. Hinduism and the things that evolved from and around it, such as Buddhism and more spiritual Eastern religions as they traveled down both the Silk Road but I presume also by sea or some other means to the Greeks. There's notable parallels between Greek and ancient Hindu culture that Emo highly suggests they were linked by some part somewhere along the line, maybe the scribes of Persia rather than them coincidentally just both developing similar ideas independently. I appreciate all the mentions of Indian religions, but the lack of Jainism being mentioned shocks me. Jainism is very in tune with science and is a very down-to-earth religion. Also is a mix of Buddhism and Hinduism. Buddhism. It's the closest to the truth. You die, you rot, your constituent minerals are spread through the earth and you're reborn as a plant. Which is then eaten by an animal, allowing you to be reborn as that so on. None of them. If there was even the slightest shred of actual, real evidence to support any of them, that would then be the clear winner. Since there isn't, they are all equally absurd. To clarify, by evidence, I mean the type of evidence that you require in all of the rest of your life to be convinced of anything. Creationism. Something is out there that led the creation of the universe, but nothing can be said of or about it. Life after death is achieved through actually show true compassion others, while those who don't are left to learn from their mistakes. I think for me it has to be Islam. I'm a Christian so prayer is important but prayer is next level for Muslim people. But Christians don't believe Muslims can go to heaven because they don't believe Jesus was God. But I think that's crap. Islam seems so much more fundamentally faithful to God. The polytheism of ancient Greece. By this, I don't mean the mythological folk aspects of it, like magic, mythical creatures, etc. It is among the few religions that don't characterize their goddess as perfectly pure beings. Instead, they are heavily flawed, often driven by greed, pride, fear, revenge, or lust. Just like humans. They commit atrocities, but also redeem themselves. This, to me, is much more believable. Instead of idealized concept of a holy being, you can somewhat sympathize, and conceptualize them as more than an abstract thought. Gods as a reflection of humanity is a very interesting concept to me. Earthism? I'm sure there's a more scholarly way of saying it, but the birth of life is between our toes and for whatever reason we keep looking up for answers. Paganism, or another earth nature-based faith. It's essentially about finding divinity through things that definitely exist, i.e. the planet. Any belief system that is nature Earth as a higher power. I've had literal miracles happen to me without praying to anyone or following any mainstream religion, and, well, no one can deny that nature exists. I used to be a Christian, but, for some reason, those were some of my worst years ever. I don't have to pray to nature or seek her help or forgiveness, she just does stuff for me. This was what the people in my region used to believe until Christianity was introduced to us. I know a few hardcore believers that changed their life habits entirely, but I'm not that type of person. Probably Buddhist, but that's not technically a religion. Mix it with some, it was aliens and the human experience is self-defined. For a non-joke answer, I think some form of paganism, really. It makes sense to worship the earth, sun, water and air that keep us all alive. Right? I feel they are all basically the same message given to very different cultures who manipulated it over the years, the ancient ones anyway. Hinduism is the oldest continuous one. None of them. There was this guy named Doug Forsett who got high once and tried to explain the whole deal, and he was like 94 right. But all the organized religions are hovering around 5 correct. Whatever those T-shapes in Göbekli Tepe meant. Pretty sure that has the highest chance of being true. I mean, what reason would any god have to if humans have no idea which religion is the real one for thousands of years? At least at that time there is a chance all humans believed the same bullshit. I feel like it would make the most sense for Hellenism, Zeus, Hades act would make the most sense to be true, like it makes for sense for there to be one goddess per thing, for example food, music,